Welcome to the March first session of the Amazing Mom program that we are covering this month. And this month we are guided by Psalm 139, which refers to the work of God from conception to birth and the life after. My name is Coach Moriah, and I'm very excited to have this conversation with you. And if you're new here, welcome to the community. We call it the Healing Table, where we come together and create a community of support, a community of breaking the trauma mentality, breaking away from the mental bondage of trauma. And I look forward to another meaningful engagement with you. I'm going to read through parts of the chapter, and I'm reading from the NIV version. And it starts by saying that the Lord has searched us and He knows us, that He knows us when we sit and when we rise. It also talks about God discerning us in all our ways and how He knows exactly what we are going to say even before we say it. He hemmed us behind and before, and that knowledge should be too wonderful for us. At that point, I'd like us to consider the process of conception, that when God planned for it, He is so articulate about it that without human interference, everything should go perfectly according to plan, and without human interference or a breakdown somewhere along that conception process, everyone then should be able to just go through their life process successfully. But as we know, that's not what usually happens. And for us as moms, sometimes we do find ourselves, especially if we've been through trauma, we have been talking or having the conversation regarding the psychosocial and psychosexual aspects of trauma. What happens to us during those two stages, where Erik Erikson brings it out as a psychologist regarding the psychosocial aspect of human development, and Sigmund Freud tells us or shares his perspective on the psychosexual bit of how we evolve in life. But this verse is very important to our journey because it talks to who we were before we became. Okay? And this means that every one of us is a masterpiece of God's creation. Your eyes, your face, your body, everything about you was literally knit together. Nothing is a mistake, nothing is an error, if that is how you came. And usually when we go through trauma, that's a bit of human interference. When we are faced with a challenge, that's also something that is human. So I'd like to refer that as well to human interference. But when there is abuse, that is affliction, because someone actually pains you. Someone actually performs the act of pain towards you. And it goes on to say that we cannot hide from the Spirit of God, that we cannot flee from the presence of God, that if we go in the darkness, it is still light to Him. And many times when we are living a life in trauma, it feels like we are in darkness. And the purpose of today's session is to actually bring us out of that darkness. We've already begun the work. If you've missed the previous videos, please find on YouTube Post Trauma Coach KE and just get caught up and be able to move right along with us. And it says here that the night is like day before the Lord. Sometimes when you've been in trauma, and especially trauma that you're not ready to confront. If you know my story, you know of my three main traumas that have brought me to this situation where I have figured, if this was what life was supposed to look like, why did I take so long? Why did I live with that trauma for 30 years? Why was it hiding? Why was I unable to speak up about it? Why wasn't I able to confront it? And we've talked about this before, and we said that it's not about the person. It's about us. So sometimes we feel like there's no need to go there because that person is there. That person is not accessible to me. Yet again, I say it's about you. And the chapter goes on to talk about how God created our innermost beings. And when you've been through trauma, it's really not about the outward appearance. It's about those intangible parts of you that got altered, that got, distracted, that got destroyed, that were harmed, that were hurt, that were afflicted with pain. And this chapter tells us that as God did that, His hand has ever been guiding us. That as He knit us together in our own mother's wombs, He knew exactly what He was doing. We'll be going through the Mother Wound book, and it's there on my TikTok handle as well. I will be sharing that clip here for points of reference. And what this is about is that, do you believe that you are knit together? Or do you just see the birth process? Do you just see, I'm a baby that no one wanted? Do you understand where you came from? Do you have a revelation of whose you are, of God's intent with you, of God's plan for you? And it goes on to say that, I praise you because I am fearfully. Many times people who've been through trauma, it's because the people who carried or performed that trauma were afraid of you. Something about you, just the devil wasn't happy. And that's how you find yourself in abuse, in violence. Okay? And we are wonderfully made. And I think the wonder is there because you're still here. You're still here. After everything you've been through, we are still here. And I believe that that is because God knows full well what He is doing with us. It goes on to say in verse 15, that my frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place. Trauma can really reduce your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-value. And when that happens, is you feel like you don't want to come out. You don't want to show who you really are. You don't want to show the magnitude of your gifts because you're afraid someone will do what happened to me before. Someone will take what I lost before. So I would rather just sit and hide. But God already knew that when you are in that secret place, being formed and put together, He knew you have everything that you need. He put it in you. And it goes on to say that I was woven together in the depths of the earth. And when you've been through trauma as a mom, as a woman, it could feel like, where do I belong? Do I really belong here? Where am I supposed to show up and feel like myself? Where am I supposed to manifest and truly be who I want to be? It goes on to say, your eyes saw my unformed body. Trauma can make us feel deformed. All the days ordained for me were written in your book. Have you been wondering your days, like, what's that about? Why am I still here? Am I here to survive the pain? Am I here to just live through it? Am I here to push through it? That's why I don't want children, because I don't want to pass that on to them. Or these children that I have, I don't know what to do with them because I don't want that to happen to them. And it goes on to say that all the days ordained for us were already written. And before one of them came to be, God knew how precious we are, how amazing we are. And in that view, I would like us to go through this session remembering that we were born, but we were also created. We were formed just the same way God took time to form the clouds and to create them and breathe life into them. God did that for us. And I pray that at the end of this, you will be able to say, wow, I am ready to continue on my trauma healing journey. to do the work that it will take. I'll now get into a brief recap of where we've walked so far, what we've been discussing, and where we've reached so far. And in our first session, we talked about self-care. And when I asked those questions, I did not know how fundamental they were to the women. Thank you so much for your feedback. That sometimes you forget about sleep. Sleep just sounds like a visitor, in your life, an estranged relationship that you have with yourself, that you never get enough sleep. And we also talked about feeling deeply about things. Sometimes when you've been through trauma and the pressures that come with motherhood, we feel like I have no time to start feeling. I will just have to push on, move on, and survive this event. We also talked about living awake. And that means that we are processing ourselves as we go through life. You are keeping a record of your own journey, of your own milestones. And the question that we left unanswered last month was, I love dash. This month, I'd like you to write that sentence down. I love dash. And right there, something that only you know about yourself that you love. One thing that only you know about yourself that you love. The words that guided us last month were renovate. We renovated our thoughts, we renovated our spaces. I hope you managed to, or at least you will begin to. We reawakened ourselves, because when you go through trauma, sometimes it feels like a deep sleep. It feels like you're literally just dead. Dead to feeling, dead to relationships, dead to healthy perspectives, dead to mental wellness, dead to social well-being. And the other word that was there was to repair. And we talked about bringing back anew. When something is broken and it's high value, it's repaired. But when it's broken and it's low value, you just replace it. Now, we are irreplaceable as moms. We are irreplaceable as women, because what you bring, knowing that you didn't come to give us what you wanted. I'm not here to give you what I think you need. I am here to serve each one of you by presenting this table where we can all come together and heal through our experiences. And the last word for the last month was resuscitate, where we were supposed to breathe in or cause our old or our dead or our unconscious selves to be resuscitated. That initial person, that God-formed person in you, to be resuscitated and begin to fight to live again. And this month, in the month of March, it will be guided by the self-concept factor. As you know, I've been leaning towards the psychology aspect, just to help us break down, our understanding and perception of what could really be happening to us. And for this session, I'd like to refer to the self-concept factor by Carl Rogers, who was a psychologist, and he, in specific, created or came up with a person-centered theory. And in the month of March, we want to focus on you, on me, not on our experience anymore. The experience, we at least have found it. And how we are going to manage ourselves as we process ourselves through this month is we are going to assign meaning to whatever trauma we went through. Imagine being gifted a home by someone who is maybe relocating, and they say, I really don't need any of this. I just need someone who can have it all, and I'm ready to give it to them as it is. And the first thing you'll do if you've been through trauma is to wonder, no, that can be real. There must be a catch. But naturally, even as you process that trauma, you might take up that offer and take that house as a gift and then begin to go through what's in it. So I believe that in the month of March, we have received the gift of truth, the gift of being trauma-informed, the gift of competence. Only this month I realized that competence is actually a gift after trauma, because what trauma does is it kind of like shreds out the things that should support you, the parts of you that should live and live well. They become like broken, cut out. And so as we go through assigning meaning to trauma this month, and our focus is on you, I pray that you will be able to relax. We talked about this in our second session in February, and we talked about how we need to stop being strict with ourselves, to cut ourselves some slack. And then we talked about remembering, and we said that now that we know our situation, could we bring those members back together, those parts of our lives back together, so that we can seek to live a better life. And we also talked about restoring, where we are now going this month to store our life the way we desire for it to look. So imagine again, you're given that house and you realize, I think their perspective is different from mine, so I'll move everything around, but I'll still keep it. That's what we want to do in the month of March, where we restore, we reorganize according to our newfound knowledge and our ability to have assigned meaning to that trauma. The main areas that we'll be looking at in March include how trauma affects or alters our rationality, our cognitive ability, and this word, very important, our fluidity. I choose to see fluid as something that moves, it's able to navigate through. And when trauma happens to us as women and we get stuck, it's us who stop. Life is still moving on. Children are still growing. Our spouses are still there. Our work is still continuing. Our calling is still waiting for us to say yes and to serve that calling, especially the gift of motherhood. And I'm not sure where you've been, but I remember a season in my life when there was no fluidity. I was just stuck in my head, stuck in my thoughts, stuck in my experiences and thinking, this is me, it has to be me, and there is nothing I can do to not live through this. And like I said, I think in my other TikTok clips, it's about how I had to stop and say, I get off the bus right here. I don't care where the bus has traveled to, I need to get off this bus. Because this bus, first of all, I was put into this bus, I didn't want to be here. And now I just want to get off the bus. And sometimes it feels that way regarding fluidity in life. We feel there's no need to try, or we just wade, let the waves just carry me to where they'll carry me. And the purpose of this healing table is that we would come together and be able to just say, you know what, I'll just make sure you're on the right side. I'll make sure you're in the right state. I'll make sure that you have the right thoughts about this. And our rationality as well gets affected when we go through trauma, because you came whole. So imagine coming in whole, and then something happens, and now nothing fits. So you're trying to fit things, and it's all mumbo jumbo. But what that does to your rationality is there's no rationale about life anymore, because what you thought you knew was proven wrong. When you are most vulnerable, someone took advantage of that negatively. So I understand why, as a mom, you might not have rationale in some very key parts of your life. I remember going through that as well. I remember thinking, then that's why he would treat me like that. That's why she would say that about me in public and not feel bad about it. That's why they wouldn't want to include me, because my rationale had been distorted and I had chosen to take the easier road less crowded. It's just me in my corner doing my own thing, how I feel like doing it. And then our cognitive as well gets very, very distorted. It becomes very, very unpredictable, very inconsistent. And if you've heard my stories, when I was trauma bonded, I think only the people around me could tell how crazy and weird I behaved. And small things, really small things, a dropping of things, banging of doors, and because of the trauma that I was still living in subconsciously, I would respond in uproar. And people would say, my goodness, what's she about? And so when I began my healing journey, I realized I'm not affected as I was before. I remember what I used to do, but it doesn't affect me right now. And so I'd like for us to go through this process together. It's also by Carl Rogers, and he talks about an ABC process. The A being the activating event, which we began the journey on in February. And I believe by now we have been able to catch up. If you've missed those videos, please find them in my shorts. I've gone age by age, the psychosocial and the psychosexual theories of human development, and you might get an answer that you've been looking for, especially for hidden trauma. You just feel like you don't know why, but this is how you feel you are. You don't know how you got here, but this is how it looks like, and you have a feeling it's always gonna be like that. So Carl Rogers talks about the activating event, and in this case I'd like us to kind of like just have the courage to look at that activating event for our trauma and see the B part of the sequence, which is the belief that we have got from that experience. So you are living your life, everything was fine, and then the event happened, and that event activated the trauma. After that, now a belief system was formed from that experience, and that is a belief system that has guided your success or lack of it till now. So the purpose of today's session is to be able to sit down with ourselves again this coming week as we did last month and just say, I know the A of it. Now I'd like to deal with the B. I want to identify, label, call out all these belief systems that have come up because of that activating event. And then towards the end, we will also discuss the consequences of those beliefs, because trauma is something that is so personal. Even two children going through the same trauma assign meaning very differently. How amazing is that? Two adults who go through the same trauma assign very different meaning. The experience is the same, but the meaning is so different to each one of us. And Carl Rogers went on and added a D and an E, but I'd like us to stop at D this month and talk about disputing the irrational beliefs. And with that in mind, the deep work we'll be doing this month is to empathize with ourselves. And sometimes when you've been through trauma, you feel like, I don't have time to cry over myself because I need to be something to someone else. I'm a mom. Do you know I'm a mom? I need to take care of these children. I need to take care of this house. I need to do my work. I need to go to work. I need to shop. I need to do this. But this month, as we trauma heal, I would like us to make an effort. Remember, all I request is at least 15 minutes every day this month to empathize with yourself. And sit there and say, I am here to feel you intentionally, to feel that event with you. And we remember the story of the inner child the little us that is somewhere within us. And I shared with you a photo, I think, of my 5th birthday, which for me is the birthday that I knew who I was. I think as a child, I just knew I'm around. But on my 5th birthday, so many things became a reality. This is my family, and these are my parents, these are my siblings. Just somehow, for me, that was mentally very awake. It was an awake moment for me, and I had turned 5. And as we empathize with ourselves, I want us to try and be genuine in our feelings. And some of the feelings we run away from, please watch the other videos on this channel. Anger, rage, brokenness, hurt. Those are the feelings we don't want to expose about ourselves. Those are the feelings we don't want to share, because we feel like, obviously, first because of the trauma, then now it will be ascertained that what that person thought was really true. I knew it. That's what the trauma is lying to you, that you'll make a confession and it will validate the negative belief that you already had about yourself. And as you're genuine with yourself, I'd like us to try towards the end of the month and towards the end of the week, this being the first week, that you give yourself unconditional positive regard. Unconditional means you do not attach any condition to yourself. You do not say, I'll only love you if you do this regarding this trauma. If you're able to say it happened to one person and you move on, that's a condition. Unconditional positive regard for me looked like eventually being able to say, I went through this and I came out of it. I've been going through this and I want to come out of it. I have been stuck in this and I want to get unstuck. And this is a conversation that we really need to have as moms, because if you're not empathizing with yourself, it's only a period of time for you to stop empathizing even with others and for others, especially for your children if you have any. As a woman, are you feeling yourself through your life journey? Genuineness is very, very important, because you are seeking your authenticity. You're sitting with yourself and saying, I think this is what I would have been, or this is how things would have turned out for me hadn't this happened, or had I addressed this sooner. And then there's that unconditionalness, and being intentional to be positive about yourself and your life story and your life journey. And as we get into person-centered therapy, I hope that we understand this view, that we actually feel like it's making sense. I pray that as much as it's a lot of work, I know. Even for me, it's a lot of work. When you listen to my TikTok videos, you'll notice I always start with a sigh, because I'm also processing myself as we go through this. I'm also assigning meaning as I seek that, as I hope to help you assign meaning to your trauma as well. And so what this would look like in the person-centered theory by Carl Rogers, as interesting as that sounds, is that he believes that all human beings are supposed to be self-directed, self-loving, self-caring, just personally motivated to improve and build yourself successfully. And his view of human nature is very, very interesting, because for me, I feel like it leans on the formation part of God. I feel like he believes that, or he agrees, he would agree with me if he was here, that because already I am not new. You see, we are only new because we were born, but we were all already created. And so I feel like for me to be self-directed, I need then to have known the direction I need to go. And when you go through trauma, as I said before, you become redirected, you lose your north. So everywhere either looks like north, or you just lose the compass altogether and you say, let it burn, let everything happen the way it's supposed to, and I'll just take it because now I've realized I am not in control of my life. And he also says that there's a trustworthiness. And as a mom who's been through trauma, trust has been taken away from you. And hence, when that activating event happened, a new belief system came. I can't trust people. I'm sure you'll have a laugh at my videos about my trust issues, which I only learned when I was about 38, that I had trust issues with caregivers because my caregiver had abandoned me and left me in a very dangerous situation. And as I healed that trauma, and I'm still healing it, I find myself understanding the perspective, the weird perspective that someone could share regarding trust. So it's not really even trust about a spouse. I brought that into my life and I've been carrying it on, and just, not being able to trust people. There's also a reference of how I have not been able to trust authentic people who loved me, and I was always judging them because as a child, some of the traumas, the only way I processed some of the traumas was by judging myself and saying, if I wasn't there, that trauma wouldn't have happened. If I didn't show up there, if I wasn't born, if I didn't get involved in that relationship, I would not have been traumatized. But who am I to judge myself? That means that I am belittling my worth, my value. And in this person-centered theory, Carl Rogers again advocated that all humans have natural potentials. And these natural potentials are not from our parents. We have the DNA of God first, but God had to manifest us through familiar beings, and those are our parents. And as moms, we have also been entrusted to bring in other people so that the work of God can continue. And when you've been through trauma, then we begin to hinder the work of God in our own lives, in the lives of our spouses, in the lives of our children. And that conversation is very important, because when you understand that I need to assign meaning to this trauma so that I can label it. Imagine walking into a big supermarket, maybe Carrefour or Target, and you don't know the aisles, they're not labeled. You have to maze around trying to follow. Oh, that must be the bakery. I can catch the scent of baking bread. But how do you trace milk? How do you find the rice? How do you find the water, the wine? You have to go through that whole maze. So God made it easy for us here and to manifest by entrusting people with us. And now He has entrusted us with other people so that they can manifest His glory. And I remember realizing that I was very apologetic to my children. And I had to tell them, I want to allow the will of God to happen for you in your life the way that it's supposed to. And Carl Rogers also says that it's us to discover what is there within us. It is us to allow what we discover to be brought out. And he talks about the self-concept factor. And I found that to be very, very well aligned with Psalm 139, because he says that it's made of 3 components and it's viewed as the unstable, changing entity. Meaning that it's organized, consistent, and constantly in the form of reforming. And that's the fluidity of life. Remember that word? That's the fluidity of life. And this is a very integral part of human development. And so the self-concept is about our past, our present and future. And in these 4 ways that he brings it out, if you're taking notes, as usual, I'd like us to write the word baggage and separate it. You know, so many times we say this trauma feels like baggage, or there's so much baggage in our family. And I'd like us to split that word into 2, bag and age. Bag and age. And the next word is ideal, the ideal self. The next word is unmask. Please put a hyphen in between. And finally, manage. Manage. And I'd like us to break that down into 2, man and age. Regarding baggage, my revelation about trauma is that these are bags, literal bags of stuff that we carry through the ages of our families, ages of generations. And that's why it's heavy, because we are not our ancestors of 200 years ago. We are not living that life, but we are carrying the pain. We are carrying the trauma. We are carrying the weight. And then there is the ideal. Everyone wants, I have an ideal person. I have an ideal life. I have an ideal dream. And I want us to look at this as how I deal with myself to attain the pro version of myself, the pro version of my life, the pro version of my purpose, the pro version of my calling as a mom, as a woman. Am I dealing so that I can become the ideal person? And the next word there, being unmasked, I'd like us to use that word, is imagine a mask. We talked about this in the other videos, and we said that what you do after trauma is you mask it. So when you're going to bed, again, you take down the mask and you say, phew, another day gone. In the morning, you take back your mask and you wear it. And the day you don't have your mask, you are exposed. The day your mask breaks, you are exposed. And I'd like us to imagine that the reason we feel, or people say, I don't think she's authentic, she sounds a bit hollow, it's because that mask that you're wearing is not even complete by itself. Even if it's a whole body mask, there's a space between you and that thing that you're wearing, and that's where things bounce off each other. You know, so there's you and then there's the mask, and right here in the middle there's that space. So someone is trying to love you, but then it's clashing because there's the you and then there's the mask. So it keeps clashing. And that's why we seem like after trauma, we make so many clashing decisions. We make so many clashing choices. Oh, I was since that thing, she never recovered from it. It's not that she never recovered, she's masking. And that would explain why we have a lot of negative self-talk, because what happens in that space is the echo of I'm not enough. He said I'm not enough. He cheated on me because I'm not enough. He doesn't love me because I'm not beautiful enough. And those are the things that we seek to break at this healing table. At this healing table, we seek to bring you into a space of I am broken and I am okay, because I will heal and I will move on and I will find myself. I will find my ideal self. I will deal with this until I become that ideal person. And then I'd like us to look at the word manage. And one of the definitions of the word manage is to succeed or survive. And so, if you look at the word man and age, and then survival for the fittest, as man in our flesh being, we are constantly, struggling to make it, to get there, to be able to express ourselves at the best, so that first of all we are acceptable, then we are chosen, then we have everything we want. But now we have been through trauma. So someone is trying to love you and you're pushing them away. Someone is trying to make you a real, solid, clean offer, but your rationale is not seeing it. Someone is trying to offer you advice, guidelines, and just set you up for success. And instead of taking that as information, you take it as judgment, because our cognitive has been distorted. Someone is saying, I think you'd thrive here. And what you're thinking is, and who told you that? Who gave you the audacity to come and tell me that you think this about me? And sad as that is, for us to be able to manage after trauma is we have to fight to survive. And the first thing you can fight is those intangible parts of you that no one sees, because they are the same parts that are robbing you of that pro version of yourself. And for me, what this looks like is that then I need to regulate. I need to make sure that as a mom, I am regulated in my emotions. I am regulated in my perspectives. I am regulated in my thoughts. I am regulated in my emotional well-being. I am regulated in my mental health. Today, someone asked me, how do I take care of myself? And I wondered, how do I take care of myself? The first thing I thought was I swim. Because when I swim, I actually told them, it feels like a fetus position for me. I feel like I've just gone back into the water where there was no care, and the water will hold me, because my daughter reminded me of upthrust force. And I wonder, how do you take care of yourself? What do you do after trauma? How have you been surviving? Are you willing to heal that trauma? Are you willing to sit down with yourself, process yourself, and say, this was good? Are you willing to sit down and say, I will be genuine about this trauma that I caused? And after that, I hope you can go full circle and say, despite all that, I am here to unconditionally regard myself positively, because I now understand my purpose, that I wasn't only born, I was created, and that is so powerful. What trauma lies to us is you are born for this problem, you are born for this situation. But if we start talking back to it and telling that trauma, I was created. Before I was born, I was created. And I'm going to do the work that I need to do, that I was sent here to do by my Creator. And so the next thing that Carl Rogers argues or seeks to bring out is the self-image. And when you've been through trauma, you feel like you're not the person in the mirror. All right? And many times we are told, who is the person in the mirror? Do you love the person in the mirror? How can you love the person in the mirror if they are masked? You're masked, so when you look in the mirror, they are masked as well. So it's two strangers looking at each other. And I'll never forget one of the boldest things I did, because someone very important to me had body shamed me, especially after a pregnancy. And I remember feeling so unworthy, undeserving, not beautiful. I don't want to say ugly, but not beautiful enough. And one of the bold steps that I took was to stand in front of a mirror and appreciate my body, and thank God for my feet that walked through that pregnancy, for my belly that went through that pregnancy and helped that little baby to manage their prenatal experience, for my heart that pumped for the two of us, for my brain that did all the brain work of living in that traumatic experience and yet managed to sustain that pregnancy, for my hands that were able to work despite going through that trauma event that made me feel unworthy, And sometimes we actually need to stop, and it keeps resounding. It keeps coming back to stop and get off that bus. Because as Carl Rogers finally argues, that self-esteem is the fourth most important in our self-concept factor as women, as moms, because that's the angle we are taking it here, is that our esteem, we all know, refers to how good I feel about myself, how well I think about myself, the worth that I ascribe to myself. And I think this is where we try to process ourselves after trauma, and it's very difficult, first of all, to unconditionally love. Just that unconditional for me is enough. I'd say story for another day. But because I'm intentional and I've already begun to see the potential of my pro version, I'm gonna keep doing this. I'm going to unconditionally love me. I'm going to regard myself positively, because what I need from me, I can't get it if I'm stuck in that trauma. What I need to manifest will not come through for me if my mind is not aligned to my purpose. I can't serve the people that God has put me to serve, being you and others, of course, without that relationship factor of my esteem with myself. And as we come to the end of the session, I pray that you will be able to put yourself together. And as usual, I will just recap for us that what we've done today was from the book of Psalm 139 in the Bible, and we refer to the NIV version of it. And the takeaway words for this week are baggage. We have agreed that this coming week, we are going to look at those bags of ages, bags that have been handed down to us and opened doors we were never supposed to have ever walked through, set us to watch, events and situations that we were never supposed to walk through because they are baggage. And we're just going to call them out and discard them. This week, we're also dealing with the ideal person that we want to become. And I pray that you have the grace to do the dealings that you need to with yourself. And we also talked about man-aging. Man-aging. For us to age well as women, as moms, we need to manage our lives, our thought patterns, our emotions, our mental wellness, especially where our trauma situations are concerned. And how we do this is to first, again, follow the ABC. Identify the activating event. Get clear on the belief system that activating event brought about for us. And then the C part, which is to look at the consequences. And are we happy that we are living in this consequence? Do we want to continue living with this consequence of that trauma? Finally, we've talked about the D part of it, which is disputing all irrationality. Today we've learned that our rationale is affected, our cognitive ability is affected, and also that we are not able to manifest ourselves fluidly through life. I hope that this session was impactful for you. I hope that it has been able to help you as you continue on your healing journey. Remember, this will go on till December, every second and third Saturdays of every month. And you're free to like, obviously, and share. and subscribe as well so that you keep up to date with when we post new things about what we are doing. Regarding the Mother Wound book, it's a book that I'd like us to go through together and just be able to see, because we've dealt with the psychosocial part, some social reasons and outcomes of where we are at, psychosexual, maybe explaining to us our sexuality, and some limitations or experiences that could have happened there that were unclear. I pray that you're gaining clarity on that. And that book will be able to help us to understand that if I went through this, then that explains the mother wound that I might have experienced in my life. Again, I'd like to thank you so much for taking time to be here to watch this, and I'm proud of you. Sometimes you need to hear that. I am proud of you for the intentionality that you're showing yourself. May this be a beginning for you to offer yourself that UPR that the future you really needs. And I pray that the traumas that you've been experienced to, the impact reduces significantly because of the work that we bring to the healing table. God bless you, and until next time, it's bye-bye for now.